Hollywood producer Scott Rosenfelt is back in the country for a series of workshops on producing, directing, and writing. Now, Scott is part of the team that produced Home Alone and Teen Wolf. Now, good morning, Scott, and welcome back. It's always nice to have you back here.
Thank you.
I was saying that you're probably more Filipino than a lot of Filipinos.
I feel that. I'm starting to get that way.
Okay, so you're here for a series of workshops, and here probably longer than your previous visits. So do tell us, you already had a workshop last Saturday.
Yes.
So how did that go?
It went really well. It was a workshop about producing, about kind of teaching Filipinos how to produce and learn how to produce on a global scale. Products shipping all over the world now. It's not just localized, and there's kind of a level to approach if you're competing with American filmmakers or British or German or Brazilian, Indian. You have to raise your game a little. So that's about teaching that kind of producing on a global basis.
So briefly, where do you think we are? I mean, you've been here in the past, and you've really been a champion when it comes to you helping the Philippines get out there. How far are we? Have we actually improved?
Oh yeah, I think there's definitely improvement. In fact, that's why there seems now, compared to the few years I've been coming, where it's like lots of talks, lots of meetings, lots of kind of beating on the walls to try to get things moving. And I feel like in the last year, maybe even 6 months, all of a sudden there feels like a bigger groundswell of this understanding of international product and elevating the product outside of the normal stuff.
How much of Hollywood should we incorporate in Filipino movies, and how much of ourselves should we keep in?
Right. Well, I think really what that's about is not the special effects and all of that, because I don't think you need to compete, because even American independent filmmakers don't compete with Marvel movies. So I think it's about story, and it's about screenplay too. It's about a better screenplay, less soap opera-ish, which we all know that exists, and there's a market for it. And there's also a market for that in the States. There are lots of people who watch daytime soaps. They watch Lifetime. They watch the Hallmark Channel. There's and those stations know the demographic, which is the same thing here. And you always hear the provinces, people like that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there needs to be a whole new level of international
So
product.
there's just something for everyone. So
right.
you just have to, broaden the playing field and add more, choices that people can actually choose from. Now, we're actually celebrating our 100th anniversary here, Filipino filmmaking. And there's a lot, as we all know, of budding Filipino filmmakers that have joined, and have actually won in a lot of these international film awards. What advice would you give them?
I think it's really to keep, there's the combination, like you said, of being Filipino and telling those stories, but having them be able to reach a larger global audience. And that's really it. It's screenplay writing, it's structure of screenplays, and it's to take that kind of Western structure, but tell a Philippine story. But you can everything's universal. One of the things I spoke about at the seminar was the movie Smoke Signals that I did. And when we made the movie, it's about Native Americans. Native Americans are still mistreated in essence in the States. And people don't know a lot about their culture. They live on, not all of them, but some live on reservations. It's a very different way of living. And we illuminated that. At the same time, the story is ultimately about a father and a son that everyone can relate to. So you tell something unique, but also something everyone can relate to.
So you need like a global theme, as you said, like a relationship that wherever you are,
right.
And then you kind of educate people with certain qualities that are only found in your area, so make it like a little bit like a docu, or maybe they...
Well, it's just so it has some truth to it.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's universal. It's something I've worked on a lot in the independent films that I've done.
And it seems to have worked.
Yeah.
Based on your track record. And you have another one coming up, which is critical thinking.
Yes, another one like that. Critical thinking is a true story of an inner city high school chess team in Miami.
And a lot of people can relate to that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Kids who were discarded, brown-skinned kids, right? Dominican, Cuban, and nobody paid attention to them. A ghetto school and a teacher, a Cuban-American teacher, believed in them, taught them how to play chess, and they became the national chess champions. It was the first team, inner city team, that ever became chess champions. Because until then, it was always the white upper-class schools. So all of a sudden, it was like, oh, kids that look like this are also smart, right? And it's a big story the same way. So it's about this culture. It's about, there's a lot of Spanish in it. John Leguizamo plays the teacher, and he directed it. And there's, you know, naturally people speak Spanish to each other, but it's in English. And so you see this culture, but it's also a universal story.
So it's a lot of feel-good, inspiring movies
right.
that maybe a lot of people need a little.
Well, it's what I've done best, generally. You know, those kinds of movies I believe in. I believe they can come out of here too.
Okay, and speaking of coming out of here, the Philippines, do you plan to do a movie?
Yes.
You've been here long enough.
Well, I mean, I wrote a script a couple of years ago, and I have a business partner here, and he, you know, I wrote it, and then we kind of put it aside. We talked about it, a bunch of it takes place here. Most of it takes place there. There's a little bit in Sydney, Australia. So we started talking, well, maybe we should find an Australian director, maybe Australian money. And then after a while, I thought, this should be a Philippine movie, really, if it's possible, because it's a more commercial movie. So we found and met with Pedring Lopez, who's recently directed a movie called Maria, which has done extraordinarily well on Netflix. And it was kind of a breakout Hollywood-style movie for a Philippine director, which is, you know, one of the first that I've seen. So we found him, we talked to him, he liked the script, so we're doing the movie together. He's directing it. And we'll hopefully be shooting by the end of January. So
that's wonderful. I mean, it's also inspiring to know that you feel that the Philippines can actually start to penetrate. I mean, we have been in little ways, maybe back ways with Lea Salonga and Bro. I mean, we are there.
Right.
But in terms of actual big-time movie.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like the seminar and showed it to me. It's like when you're told you can't do it, it's like any teacher, a good teacher and kids anywhere. If you're told you're stupid, if you're told you're third world, you start to believe it.
Agree.
And really all it takes is throwing that away and starting to believe something else.
And you're here to help us throw it away with a series of workshops. Yes. Can people sign up?
Yes.
Or how
I have a Facebook page. There are other ways that people can find how to sign up. But I did a producing workshop last Saturday, doing a writing workshop on September 28th, a directing workshop on October 5th, and then a combination of all of it on October 12th. And it's kind of a precursor to developing an entire film school that with other people here we're talking about putting together. So it's an intro to the film school. And it's a good way of getting people to see, you know, how my approach, how to bring their work into more of a global focus.
Well, wonderful. It's always a joy having you here because you always bring such wonderful news. We look forward to catching your critical thinking and, of course, to all of the workshops that you have and the upcoming movie. Hope to see you next year. Thank you so much as Hollywood producer Scott Rosenfelt here on New Day.